Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into a fascinating text that honestly completely flips how we tend to look at material wealth, ethics, and what actually drives us as humans. It's this massive philosophical shift that asks a really profound question. What actually happens when we transition from prioritizing what we own to what we believe? So let's start right on the ground level with some ancient wisdom from the philosopher Mencius. His argument was actually pretty straightforward. He said society is only peaceful when people have material security, which he called constant possessions. And honestly, the logic is super intuitive, right? If folks have their basic needs met and their livelihood secured, society naturally just becomes more harmonious. Basically, give people a stable income and they'll have a stable, constant heart. But here's where the text introduces a brilliant paradox. It asks a really direct, kind of uncomfortable question. Does having everything you need actually stop you from doing bad things? And on the flip side, do people without material wealth inevitably break the law? Well, the text argues the answer to both of those is a hard no. Wealth simply does not automatically equal morality. Now, just to be super clear here, this philosophy doesn't dismiss property or wealth as inherently bad. Not at all. Actually, protecting lawful private property is viewed as a core universal value. Depriving someone of it is literally a crime. Private property acts kind of like a vast, nurturing pasture for us. It's the absolute foundation of human survival and prosperity. So yes, property rights are essential. But the crucial point the text makes is that constant possessions belong strictly to the material realm. Think about it. If your steadfastness in life depends entirely on your stuff, your house, your bank account, then your perspective remains incredibly narrow. The text argues that this actually keeps human consciousness at a mere animalistic level, completely trapped by that basic biological need for survival and comfort. That brings us to Section 1, the limits of material wealth. Let's look at the stark contrast between these two mindsets. Imagine a farmer who completely owns his land. He has those constant possessions, right? He is totally materially secure. Yet that security absolutely does not guarantee he won't cheat to maximize profits, maybe by using harmful chemicals on his crops. In contrast, someone driven by constant faith just won't do this. Why? Well, because their steadfastness isn't tied to profit at all. It's tied to a really acute awareness of the dreadful ethical consequences. It's pretty fascinating when you break it down. Simply giving people wealth absolutely does not inevitably prevent them from breaking laws or engaging in moral misconduct. But more importantly, relying purely on constant possessions keeps our consciousness entirely tethered to the physical world. It totally solves the problem of basic survival, sure, but it completely misses the elevation of the human soul. Moving on to Section 2, the power of constant faith. To really explain this higher state, the source points to a heavenly realm where the very idea of ownership just vanishes completely. Up there, everyone has the right to use things, but no one actually has the right to own them. It's this beautiful paradox, right? By owning absolutely nothing, you somehow possess everything. It's a complete and total detachment from those constant possessions that Mencius argued for. And to really ground this idea, just think about historical giants for a second. Think about Jesus Christ, Siddhartha Gautama Buddha, the sage Laozi, or even countless early missionaries. Literally none of them had massive estates or what we'd call constant possessions. Yet they possessed this incredibly unshakable constancy of heart. They were just operating on an entirely different level than the rest of us. Their secret? It wasn't constant possessions. It was constant faith. This is that absolutely unwavering belief that empowers a person to endure crazy hardships and just keep persevering toward their predetermined goals. Whether the path is completely smooth or incredibly torturous, their action remains constant. Why? Because their internal compass is just totally locked in. Now, there is a super important caveat here. Faith is an incredibly powerful engine, but it depends entirely on what you point it towards. Like, if your absolute unwavering faith is that money makes the world go round, well, then your constant action is simply going to be the relentless, lifelong pursuit of wealth. The mechanism of faith totally works, but the destination, that depends entirely on the belief itself. But ultimately, operating from a place of constant faith is just a massive evolutionary step up. The perspective of someone with constant faith far, far surpasses someone who merely has a constant heart because they happen to have wealth. One person is driven by this unshakable internal engine, while the other relies entirely on external circumstances just happening to remain stable.
And that leads us to our final section, the pig and the swan.
Okay, consider a pig in a sty. Once it has its daily slop and a nice little pen, it has constant possessions. And as a result, it gets that constant heart. It's perfectly content, but it's entirely tethered to a very small physical space. On the other hand, we have a swan. Now, the swan has no fixed home, no property, and absolutely zero constant possessions. But the swan? The swan possesses constant faith.
Because the swan relies on that internal drive rather than being stuck in a physical space, it can freely soar between heaven and earth. It migrates with the changing seasons, just flying wherever it wants to go. This complete lack of material tethering, when it's replaced by a true solid internal compass, literally equals ultimate freedom.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with a question. Obviously, we all need to survive, but beyond that basic need, what is actually driving you? Are you spending your entire life building and maintaining a material pigsty just so you can feel secure? Or are you actively cultivating the kind of unwavering, constant faith that allows you to soar in the open sky? Think about it. It's a real game changer. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.